Gospel of Luke. We've been in Luke for quite a while, and as I've said before, Luke is my favorite gospel, but this lectionary path through Luke, it started to make me wonder why I think it's my favorite, because pretty much other than last Sunday when we got to deal with the prodigal son and the lost coin and whatnot, we've been dealing with some of the hard verses in Luke's gospel. And today we are dealing with what is often considered the most difficult, the most troubling of all the parables. And that is the parable of the dishonest manager, as it's often called. This is found in Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. And I wish I could tell you that I'm going to make this parable perfect for you, and you'll understand it, and you'll see the beauty of it, and that it won't be troubling to you. But I'm not going to be able to do that. But hopefully I'm going to make it a little less troubling. But it is a difficult parable for whatever reason. This side of creation, I don't know that we're going to really understand this one. And sometimes that's what faith is. We have to understand that there's some things we're just not going to understand. And so let's look at this. Luke's Gospel, chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. Actually, I'm going to cut that down to 8. We're going to stop at 8. Just 1 through 8. We'll stop there. Because I know everybody's wanting to get down to chiller feet. So. Then Jesus said to the disciples, "There was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, 'What is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.' Then the manager said to himself, 'What will I do now that my master has taken the position away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am too ashamed to beg. I am ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do, so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes.' So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. He said to him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, 'How much do you owe?' He replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, 'Take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light.'" And there's a little bit more about serving God and Mammon there that we may talk about, but we may not. This is troubling because Jesus seems to be commending dishonesty. And that's what makes this parable really tough. And part of that, I think, is the way that we look at this. And I'm going to suggest a different way of looking at this parable. And hopefully maybe that'll make it a little less soft, or a little more soft. Part of it is that it's entitled "The Parable of the Dishonest Manager." And so right off the bat, we come at it thinking, this guy's a crook. Jesus liked to talk in hyperbole. Some people think that Jesus is being sarcastic here. Some commentators think this is Jesus being sarcastic. But here we have a rich man, and he has a manager. Now, in that time period, and we should be able to relate to that here in Iowa, and in the farming community, you had a lot of people that owned farm ground that lived in the towns, that lived away. They were absentee owners, and they would rent that land out, and many times they would have someone hired to manage the property and to deal with their tenants. They didn't even know, and there are companies out there, there are farm management companies that do that very thing. In fact, at one point in my life, I thought about going into that field of work and working for a management company. I didn't do it, but there are those kinds of things. And that seems to be what's going on here. We have this landowner, and he has some property, and this manager is managing the farm ground with these tenants that owe him these various different types of crops. And that was generally the way that it was done. Generally, they used kind of a hybrid of what we look at as sharecropping or cash rent, and here it was more You farm the ground and I get this much produce. So it's kind of cash rent, but paid in the product. And so that's what's going on here. And you have to remember, in the time of Jesus, what happened with the tax collectors. The tax collectors were hired to collect taxes, right? And then they went out, and what did they do? They collected the taxes for the Roman Emperor or whatever government they were working for, and they would collect as much more than they could as well to line their own pockets. And I might suggest to you that perhaps that's what's going on here. This manager has been overcharging. He and the landowner sat down and figured out what the rent should be, and then he's gone to the tenants and told them it's this much. And now you owe me 100 instead of 80 bushels. So I'm going to make 20 bushels for myself. I'm going to give the 80 to the landowner, and then he's going to take my salary. So he is, he's taking advantage of the landowner because he's getting paid twice, but he's really taking advantage of the tenants, isn't he? But the landowner's found out about this perhaps, and he's saying, wait a minute, I want an accounting from you. Now, it's interesting to note, he does not give him a date, does he? I want an accounting from you. Rather than sitting down with him and saying, explain to me right now, it's somewhere off in the future. This reckoning, this judgment that's coming. This man's wronged these individuals. And so what's he do? Oh my word, the landowner, my Lord, must have found out I need to right my wrongs because judgment's coming. I'm going to have to stand before him and answer to what I've done wrong. I've wronged these people. So I need to take care of that wrong before my judgment day comes past. So he goes and he talks to these individuals and he reconciles with them. He knows what they were supposed to be charged. You were supposed to be charged for 50 bushels or whatever instead of 100. And so write it down. This is what it was. Write it down to that because I want it on the books. So when I go and I say, I've reconciled, I've given back what I've stolen, basically. I'm reminded of the story, George Foreman wrote a book, God's in My Corner, or God in My Corner. And it's a great book. I used to have a copy of it, but I loaned it out. I don't know where it went. I don't remember who I loaned it to, and it never came back to me. Books do that. But it's okay. It's a good book. I may buy another copy. But it's a wonderful book. And in there, George Foreman talks about his coming to God. And he had a very dramatic conversion story that I won't tell you. But the thing was that when he came to God, he had this overwhelming knowledge that he had to reconcile with all those he heard. So he sat down and wrote a list of all the people he could remember that he had wronged. And he set about going out and finding those people and begging for their grace and their forgiveness. And the thing you have to know about George Foreman is that he worked for loan sharks. He was a leg breaker, literally, when he was a young man. He worked for the mob, beating people up that hadn't paid their debts that were overcharged. And so a lot of these people that he was going back and asking for forgiveness were people that he had not only harmed by hurting their feelings, but people he had physically harmed. And he did that. He went through and he checked off his list. And that's one of the most remarkable things about his story. But I'm reminded of that by what's going on here. This dishonest tenant or dishonest manager has wronged these tenants. And he realized his judgment day is coming. And I better get right with these people before I face my Lord. And I would suggest that just maybe that's what we're supposed to walk away from this. The idea that we need to get right with each other. Because, yes, Christ forgives. And we ask God for forgiveness. But God also wants us to be reconciled with one another. He doesn't want us to go and say, I know that I can wrong everybody I want, And when I come to you, I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, and it's all good. That doesn't work with mom, it doesn't work with grandma, does it, Jody? No, not too well. I'm thinking it's not going to be the best way to handle God either. If grandma's not going to like it, guess what? God's not going to like it either. So remember that. What would Jesus do? What would grandma do? Whoops. But for most people, that would be safe. Maybe not for everyone. But at any rate, and perhaps that's just a little different way of looking at this parable. But it's still a difficult parable. I'll grant you that. It's really tough. It's a hard one. But I think there's a little glimpse of grace in there, a little glimpse of what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be right with one another because judgment is coming. We don't like to think about that. We just got done with the parable of the prodigal son, and grace abounds. But guess what? That son was contrite, wasn't he? He was humbled. He was humbly coming to his father to ask for forgiveness. The person he did wrong was his father. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so very much for the love and the grace of Jesus Christ. We thank you for the parables and the messages that we find in Luke. We just ask for your guidance and your discernment as we deal with these parables and we try to understand them and we try to apply them to our life here in Iowa. Lord, we just lift this all up to you and we ask for your blessing upon us. Amen. And we